Now 1.5.5. Suppose, monks, a pool of water, turbid, stirred up, muddied. Then a man who has eyes to see stands upon the bank. He could not see the oysters and the shells, the pebbles and the gravel as they lie, or the shoals of fish that dart about. Why not? Because of the turbid state of the water. Just so it is impossible for that monk of whom I speak to understand with his turbid mind either his own profit or that of others. Impossible for him to understand both his own profit and that of others, or to realize states surpassing those of ordinary men, the excellence of truly Aryan knowledge and insight. What is the cause of that? It is the turbid nature of his mind, monks. Then 1.5.6. But suppose, monks, a pool of water, pellucid, tranquil and unstirred. Then a man who has eyes to see while standing on the bank could see the oysters and the shells, the pebbles and the gravel as they lie, and the shoals of fish that dart about. Why so? Because of the untroubled nature of the water, monks. Just so it is possible for that monk of whom I speak with his untroubled mind to understand either his own profit or that of others, both his own profit and that of others. It is possible for him to realize states surpassing those of ordinary men, the excellence of truly Aryan knowledge and insight. What is the cause of that? The untroubled nature of his mind, monks. Okay, now I have to comment on this. This troubled state of the mind and the untroubled state of the mind refers to the 5 hindrances. Just now we heard that the uncultivated mind is the same as this untroubled. This uncultivated mind is the troubled mind. Now, in some other sutta, the Buddha gave a very clear simile for the 5 hindrances. The Buddha said, suppose a man were to try to look for his reflection in water, and he tries to see his reflection in a bowl of water. And then the Buddha says, a person with strong sensual desire is like a person trying to look for his reflection in a bowl of water which has into which a lot of dye has been put, dye, the dyes, different colors, dark color of dye. And then because of the different dyes, that water is no more clear. So that when he tries to look for his reflection to see his own face, he cannot see. And then the simile for the second hindrance, which is ill will, the Buddha says a person trying to look for his reflection in a bowl of water which is boiling. When the water is boiling, it is so troubled. You look, you cannot see your own reflection. The third one is sloth and torpor, and then the sloth and torpor, the simile for it is like a bowl of water which has a lot of weeds, a lot of water plants floating on the surface, etc. And because it is covered by these plants, when you try to look for your reflection, you can't see it. That is sloth and torpor. The fourth one is restlessness and worry. Buddha said a person trying to look for his reflection and the pool of water is stirred by the winds. The winds are causing ripples, waves on the surface. So when you try to look for your reflection, you cannot see. That is restlessness and worry. And then doubt. The simile for doubt is like this water is muddy. And then you go and stir the mud. And then you churn up the mud. And then this bowl of water you go and put in a dark place. In a dark place, you're trying to look for your reflection. Definitely you can't see. So that is the simile for the doubt, the last hindrance. So here the Buddha is talking about the turbid state of water is the troubled mind. Troubled mind is that mind which is full of the hindrances. That's why you cannot see into water clearly. That's why the Buddha said the water that is clear and still, that is the simile for a cultivated mind, a very tranquil mind, mind with strong samadhi, clear and bright and still. Then 1.5.8. Monks, I know not of any other single thing so quick to change as the mind, insomuch that it is no easy thing to illustrate how quick to change it is. That's all this sutta says. And this sutta is telling us that the mind changes extremely fast. And because it changes extremely fast, if we know, we should use it to good advantage. For example, if we have a good resolve, a good intention that comes up. For example, some people think, oh, maybe I should become a monk. So because there's a good intention, you should quickly act. If you don't act slowly, your mind will change. The mind is fickle. So when there's a good intention, there's a good resolve, we are afraid that it might change, we quickly act. On the other hand, if you have a bad intention or bad resolve, then you should not act on it. For example, anger arises, and then you think you want to, if you react with a lot of anger, definitely you're going to do something which is unwholesome, which is not wise, because your state of mind is troubled. And once you know that, then instead of acting, you don't do anything. Just wait for the anger to subside. And because the mind is quick to change, it will subside. If you just keep on waiting, just do nothing, just resolve not to act on it. So that is using this with wisdom, the fact that the mind can change very fast. So today we are at Sutta number 1.5.9. The Buddha said, this mind, monks, is luminous, but it is defiled by taints that come from without. And then 1.5.10, that mind, monks, is luminous, but it is cleansed of taints that come from without. These are the two suttas that I'm going to explain first. These two suttas are very interesting. It is one of those suttas that when somebody is new in the Dhamma and he studies the suttas for the first time, he does not notice the importance of a sutta like this. The Buddha said this mind is luminous. This mind here is a translation for citta. There are three translations for mind. Citta is one, Vijnana, consciousness, which is normally translated as consciousness, is another, and Mano or Mana is the third. Vijnana is normally used for consciousness. That means being conscious of objects of the six sense doors, and that is Vijnana. And Mano is one of the six sense bases, the thinking faculty. Mano is the thinking faculty. And Citta here appears to be, the translation is mind. It is like more encompassing aspect of the mind. There are various opinions about these three words. Some monks say that they all mean the same thing, and some monks say that they are different aspects of the mind. Anyway, here it says that the citta is luminous, but it is defiled by taints that come from outside, from without. You can also say that it is defiled by superimposed defilements. Now, why this sutta is very interesting? Because there are two views on the final state of Nibbana. And those monks who study and follow the Abhidhamma and the commentaries,
they are of the opinion that in the state of Nibbana, all the consciousness, the mind has stopped completely and there is nothing left. But for the other view is the view of those monks who rely only on the suttas. And their view is a little similar to the Hindu view of the ultimate state. And the second view is that it is not that everything has ceased entirely. There seems to be something left according to the suttas, because there is a sutta in the Digha Nikaya number 11, Kevada Sutta, I think, where the Buddha said that in the ultimate state, there is still light. The mind is luminous. So mentioned just now the Kevada Sutta, Digha Nikaya number 11, the Buddha said, "But monk, you should not ask your question in this way. Where do the four great elements, earth, water, fire, wind, cease without remainder? Instead, this is how the question should have been put. Where do earth, water, fire, and wind no footing find? Where are long and short, small and great, fair and foul? Where are nama rupa wholly destroyed?" And the answer is, where consciousness is non-manifestative, boundless, all luminous, that's where earth, water, fire, and wind no footing find. There both long and short, small and great, fair and foul, there nama rupa are wholly destroyed. With the cessation of consciousness, this is all destroyed. Now, so this is one sutta where the Buddha seems to talk of an ultimate state where the normal consciousness, the normal sixth consciousness has ceased altogether, and yet there is still a state which is boundless, luminous, non-manifestative consciousness. And this non-manifestative consciousness is believed to be similar to the kind of consciousness which the Buddha calls unsupported consciousness. Unsupported consciousness, which is completely different from the sixth normal consciousness. The sixth normal consciousness, they have to have an object as a condition for it to arise, but not with the unsupported consciousness, apatitang vijnana. So that is why this view of the ultimate state is a bit controversial. Now, the Hindu concept is that they talk about an Atman, but then some monks, some Buddhist monks say, because they talk about Atman, that there is still a soul, there is still an Atman, there is still what they call Brahma in the ultimate state. So they cling to the belief in a self. But if you study the Hindu teachings more deeply, you find that their concept of Atman is not the same as our Buddhist concept of Atta. They also believe that there is no such thing as an ego, that we take rebirth because of the clinging to an ego. And they also say that you have to extinguish that ego to attain the ultimate state. So their concept of Atman, if you study carefully, they also call it Brahma, is quite different from the Buddhist concept of Atta. It is something that is out of this world, out of the whole of existence. And some people who are not too familiar with the suttas would be surprised to know that the Buddha also calls the ultimate state of the Buddha as the Brahma body. In the Aggañña Sutta, which is the Digha Nikaya number 27, the Buddha said, this designates the Tathagata, Dhammakaya, Brahmakaya, Dhammabhuta, Brahmabhuta. So here in the Digha Nikaya number 27, the Buddha says the Tathagata, which is the Buddha, is ultimately the Dhammakaya or Dhamma body, Brahmakaya or Brahma body, and Dhammabhuta, Dhamma become, Brahmabhuta, Brahma become or become Brahma. So this word that the Buddha uses for the ultimate state, which is Brahma body and become Brahma, is not too different from the Hindu concept of the ultimate reality, which they call Brahma. And the meaning of this sutta appears to be that this mind is basically bright, luminous, but because of superimposed defilements, defilements or taints that come from outside, external, the mind is no more bright. Is no more bright. That is why, like for ordinary people, when we close our eyes, we see darkness all around. The mind is dark. Whereas for an Arahant, it appears like even when they close their eyes, the mind is bright. So there are some people like Ajahn Mun in the Thai tradition, and the Thai Ajahns, they say that the original mind, they talk about the original mind. They say that the original mind is bright. And then they say that the defilements are the normal six consciousness. Because when the mind has the six consciousness arise, it means that there is an external object which attracts the attention of the six consciousness. The six consciousness or one of them arise, and so our energy is scattered out through the six sense doors. Because the energy is scattered out through the six sense doors, so the mind becomes scattered, and when the mind becomes scattered, it becomes sort of darkened. That is why when we practice one-pointedness of mind, we practice the jhanas, the samadhi that is taught by the Buddha, we don't allow the energy to go out through the five sense doors. And we, even the sixth sense door, the mind, is put on one object, only one object. And because of that, the mind becomes one-pointed, becomes concentrated, and the mind attains back that luminosity, the brightness. That is why jhana can be translated as a state of mental incandescence. And so that is what I like to say about this sutta, that it is one of the important suttas which is used by those monks who follow the second opinion, namely that the mind is originally bright and it can be turned to that original bright state of a different kind of consciousness, and not the normal six consciousness. But we have to be very careful that if we say that whether something exists in the ultimate state or something does not exist in the ultimate state, because in the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter of the Fours, the Buddha said that concerning Nibbana, do not say or say not that something exists, and also say not that nothing exists. It is something beyond the understanding of the mind, because in the ultimate state, the mind has stopped working. So the normal mind, so you cannot perceive with the normal mind, it appears that it can only be experienced, but it cannot be known with the ordinary mind. So now we come to the next sutta, which is 1.6.3. The Buddha said, "Monks, if for just the lasting of a finger snap, a monk indulges a thought of metta," here translated as goodwill, such a one is to be called a monk. Not empty of result is his jhana. He abides doing the master's bidding. He is one who takes good advice, and he eats the country's alms food to some purpose. What then should I say of those who make much of such a thought? That's the end of the sutta. Here the Buddha is trying to say that metta, even goodwill or loving kindness or impersonal love, universal love, if you even have a thought of metta, then that monk is called a real monk. And here the Buddha also says, not empty of result is his jhana. So from here it would appear that to practice metta, you have to attain jhana first. To attain jhana, then only you can radiate this metta. Now 1.6.8, the Buddha said, "Monks, I know not of any other single thing of such power to cause the arising of evil states, if not yet arisen, or to cause the waning of good states, if already arisen, as negligence. In him who is negligent, evil states, if not already arisen, do arise, and good states, if arisen, do wane." Then the next sutta says, "Monks," 1.6.9, "Monks, I know not of any other single thing of such power to cause the arising of good states, if not yet arisen, or to cause the waning of evil states, if already arisen, as earnestness. In him who is earnest, good states, if not yet arisen, do arise, and evil states, if arisen, do wane." These two suttas show that earnestness is very important, and negligence is something that we have to be very careful about. Negligence brings about evil states. That means states of pain, states of suffering, and good states are states that you do not suffer, you do not have pain. And negligence, you see, leads to careless. Negligence means carelessness, basically, not being serious, and that leads to indolence, being lazy, and so it brings about all the bad states. Whereas if a person is sincere, is earnest, that means he has a lot of sincerity, he's serious, and that leads to a lot of effort. And effort brings us progress. We get a lot of good states arising from it. Now the next sutta is 1.8.6. "Of slight account, monks, is the loss of such things as relatives. Miserable indeed among losses is the loss of wisdom." And then 1.8.7. "Of slight account, monks, is the increase of such things as relatives. Chief of all the increases is that of wisdom. Wherefore I say, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will increase in wisdom. You must train yourselves to win that." Then 1.8.8. "Of slight account, monks, is the loss of such things as wealth. Miserable indeed among losses is the loss of wisdom." And 1.8.9. "Of slight account, monks, is the increase of such things as wealth. Chief of all the increases is that of wisdom. Wherefore I say, monks, thus must you train yourselves. We will increase in wisdom. You must train yourselves to win that." So these four suttas
the Buddha is trying to tell us that wisdom is more important than all the worldly things. Because among the worldly things, for most people, relatives are extremely important. Relatives and wealth, these are the two most important things in the world for ordinary people. But the Buddha says all that is not important at all compared to wisdom. Wisdom is the something that is much more important than the worldly things. Because if we have wisdom, then we would not continue in this round of suffering and the round of rebirths. And how do you get wisdom? First, we have to listen to the Buddha's teachings, like here, the suttas. Because by listening to the Buddha's teachings, then we understand what is important, what is not important, like here in the sutta. And then also we know what to practice, like keeping the precepts, doing charity, listening to the Buddha's teachings, the Dhamma, and then practice meditation, etc. So that is how we increase in our wisdom, by understanding the Buddha's teachings, the Dhamma, and then putting it into practice, especially meditation. But I always like to say that meditation is like a university compared to the other aspects of the Buddha's teachings, like keeping the precepts, making offerings. And so it is not something that we plunge into for a beginner. It is best that we study the Buddha's teachings first, so that we have the theory before we go into practice. Just like we want to drive a car, you have to learn the highway code first and learn how to steer, etc., before you go on the road. Otherwise, a lot of us, we get into wrong teachings, and we get into it for many years before we realize that we have been wasting our time, and then we stumble back into the correct teachings. Now 1.10.13. Monks, as a matter concerning the external, I know not of any other single factor so conducive to great loss as friendship with the evil. Friendship with the evil indeed conduces to great loss. 1.10.14. Monks, as a matter concerning the external, I know not of any other single factor so conducive to great profit as friendship with the lovely. Indeed, friendship with the lovely conduces to great profit. Now, these two suttas are trying to tell us that, especially in the spiritual path, having a good friend, Kalyana Mitta, sometimes they translate in the Mahayana as a good knowing advisor. That means somebody on the spiritual path with you is very important. This is especially so for someone who is not established on the path, someone who does not yet have unshakable faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. If somebody who is interested in the Dhamma, but in the beginning, in the initial steps of the path, if he associates much with evil friends, friends who are not interested in the Dhamma, friends who do not keep the Sila, the precepts, who are not interested into practice the spiritual path at all, then it is for that person who is new on the path, he is very easily influenced by his friends, and he can lose his way along the path and go on the wrong track. That's why the Buddha says that friendship with somebody who is lovely, that means a spiritual friend who is well established on the spiritual path, is very important for somebody new on the spiritual path. In fact, there's one sutta where Ananda said, Bhagava, our Lord, friendship with the lovely is half of the spiritual life. And the Buddha said something like, no, Ananda, no. Friendship with the lovely is all to do with the spiritual path.
So the Buddha is always saying that having a good friend on the spiritual path, one who is established in the way, is very important.